All right, how's it going, everyone? It's been a while. I haven't made a video in a while, mainly because I've been on vacation. I went on a cruise. I had my dad visiting for a week before the cruise, and Christmas is coming up. So I just haven't had the time or the motivation to really make videos. So I wanted to kind of make one for a long-term subscriber who's asked me to kind of implement this and show him how to implement this. And kind of explain how I could use a JavaScript map to implement this. So this is what we're going to build. Hopefully it won't take too long. It's basically, you have 3 checkboxes, and if you select on the delete checkbox, what it's going to do, it's going to auto check all 3 of them, I believe. So you have the ability to click read, you can click write. If you click delete, it checks all of them. So how would you implement something like this? I have a Vite app set up over here. Let me just go ahead and run it. I think it's run dev. I don't know what port that was on. So let's go ahead and click on this. All right, we got a little Vite app. So let's go. Let me go ahead and just go to this. And I'm a little rusty. I've been working, but I haven't really been like coding. So probably gonna screw up a little bit. Anyway, let's just clear out all this stuff like I normally do. And what we want to do is first of all, figure out how do we build this, right? So let's start with the simplest case is how do you make a row with 3 checkboxes and how do you have them kind of like set up logic? So this is a good time to like think about how would you componentize, like this whole row could be its own component potentially. Maybe we're over engineering at this point, but if I were to make a little component here, I'll say function checkbox row. This could kind of keep track of the state to know which thing has been checked. And I'm just going to go ahead and return a div. And in that div, we're going to have an input type of checkbox. And we'll do 3 of them. And let's make sure that these things show up. Obviously, they're not going to show up because I didn't render out that component, right? So let's just render that out. And we get 3 checkboxes in the center of our screen. Now, if you wanted to make a table out of this, you could. It might be easier to wrap this in a table, which is why I'm saying maybe if you jump the gun and you start making a component before actually like understanding what you're building, you can kind of shoot yourself in the foot. Let's just kind of go forward with this and see what happens. So we want 3 checkboxes. When the user clicks read, we want to keep track of they have the read thing checked. And then write, same thing, and then delete would be auto-checking both of those. So his original question is how do you use a map to kind of implement this? Well, a map, in JavaScript, you can use objects to basically set up maps for dictionaries. But there is an actual like map, you could say like new map in JavaScript. To be honest, I don't find any good solid arguments to use it instead of just using an object unless you like need to use a non-string for the lookup, for the key lookup. Anyway, I'll start with an object because it kind of makes most sense, but I'm gonna go ahead and keep track of some state here. And I'll say like permissions and set permissions. This seems like a good name for what we're building. It's kind of like a permissions checkbox. And I'll say use state. And we're gonna pass this a initial state that's gonna be an object that has read of false, write of false, and delete of false. Okay, so just to verify this, let's hook these inputs up to the map or the object, whatever you want to call it. I don't really know. And I'm going to say value is equal to permissions.read, because this is going to be the read checkbox. And I'm going to go ahead and just, Boolean is not assignable to type string, number, or read only. I think I need to call it checked, not value. So that was my bad. Call it checked. Good thing you got TypeScript that tells you when you do stupid stuff. I'll do write, and then I'll say delete. So let's make sure that these things show up. Now again, like there's no label, so we don't know what the heck these things are. But to verify this, let's just go ahead and set them all to true here and make sure that the checkboxes are checked. Okay, so now we've kind of set up a map and we've kind of linked those to the Boolean state. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll set these back to false. But now we want to add some logic so that when you click on delete, it's going to go ahead and auto check read and write. So let's just start with that. That seems like the most interesting problem to figure out. I'm going to say on change. And I will say handle delete changed like that. And I think I say e dot, I'll say e, and that could be current target dot value. I think that's how you do it. I'm gonna make a function up here that's gonna handle that. And I'm just gonna go ahead and put a Boolean here called checked or is checked. And I'll make that a Boolean. All right, let's just verify this works. I'm gonna console log is checked. And let's just make sure that when we string, I think you can say like as Boolean. I think there's one called like as number. Value as number, value as. Anyway, let's just see what prints out here. I don't know if this is gonna work. So I'll check on the delete one. On, thing on. Kind of interesting. Is that actually how you do it in React? I'm gonna go ahead and go to Stack Overflow, checkbox on change. No, not that. React. There's no shame. I'm gonna look this stuff up. You know, it's like I haven't made a checkbox at my real job in a while, but let's just look at an example. Because it says on, checked. On change, this on change action bind this, dot checked. Actually, I think I just say checked here. Let's see. Is that what I want? True, false. Okay. So e.current target.checked. I just forgot like the API we need to use, but whatever. So when you click on the delete, how would you make it automatically select read and write? Well, in fact, you need to turn them all on, right? So I could just say set permissions, and we could just do this. I could go ahead and set them all to true, right? Should be pretty straightforward. And now if I click on this, they both go true. Click it again, it doesn't unselect them. Okay, so we might have to figure that out as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put like, I don't know what the actual logic of what he wants, but I'll just say like is checked. So this is going to be true when you click it and it's trying to turn it to be checked. So like really, I think I need to say is checked here and not just true. Let's try this. I'm going to refresh the page. Click it again, goes off. You provided a checked prop with form field without an on change handler. It's because I didn't put on change here. So let's do the same logic for both of these, but it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to say on change. And we're going to do this a little bit sloppy. I'm just going to go ahead and say like set permission, and then dot 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 permissions, and then I'll say read is going to be e.current target.checked. Super hacky. Let me go ahead and do this. I just want to get this working, and I'll refactor it and show you a better approach. So this will be right, and I hope this works. Turn on, turn off, turn on, off. Select them both, select them off. Now, I don't know what the edge case is for like if you've unselected one of them, you click on this. Like what is that supposed to do? But I'm guessing if you have any of these turned on, you need to turn the right off, or you need to turn delete off. Because I don't think you can have delete on without both of these being on. So I think if you were to have it like this, and then you click on this, you need to turn delete off. So there's like more logic we have to figure out. So handle delete change. I'm gonna make another function called like handle non-delete changed. And again, like if you guys are watching this and you're like, man, you're doing it so sloppily, like you could obviously do this a better way. That's cool. Leave a comment if you think of a better way we could do this. So I'm gonna call a method here that is gonna call this function, and I'll say like key is a string, and I'll say is checked is a Boolean. And instead of calling this inside this inline function here, I'm gonna call it here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and pass the key here. Is checked like that. And I could do the same thing with read. Okay, so I think this should still work the same way. But what we're trying to solve is like if you select this and then you select read or write and turn them off, you need to turn off the delete as well. So let's see if we can figure that out. So basically I want to say if is checked is not true, I'm gonna go ahead and set the permissions, and I'm gonna say delete is gonna be false. Okay, so if you selected or if you unselected a checkbox, you're gonna turn delete off. So let's see if this changes the logic. And I'm gonna go ahead and click on this, click that off. I think that's what you want. Could be wrong though. Again, this is why you want to do like unit testing, right? You want to make sure you're doing it right. I think it's works pretty good. So again, going back to the picture, he wants T1, T2, T3, T4. So we could probably do some type of table or CSS grid or something. But we want this 4 times. I'll say like T1, and we'll make this, we'll make it a grid. So I'll say div class name is equal to grid. You could probably also use like flexbox or something, but I'm just going to keep this super simple. If you want to get sophisticated with how you're doing styling, like you can do that. I'm going to say display is grid, and then grid template columns is heat for 1FR. Is that how you do it? I don't remember if that's how you do it. But that should like put them in 4 columns. Actually, this thing is wrapped in a div, so we might actually have to get rid of that and make it a fragment. Okay, there we go. Don't know why I took a picture of that. But now we got the grid going, and in fact, I should probably do, wait, why are there so many? Oh, I think what I want to do is I want to, I'm going to put T1 here. Again, just play around with the code until it looks good. I'm going to go ahead and pass in a label here. So this could take in a prop called label, and then we could just go ahead and render out the label here, like so. And we could say label is the string of T1. We'll do this a couple times. T2, T3, T4. There you go. So now as you like select these different read-write things, actually what we also want to do here is I'm going to say, put an empty space. Let me think about this. Am I going to screw this up? Probably am. We want to say read, write, and delete. Honestly, using a table might have made this a little bit easier. So like for me to achieve this, I think I could just hack it with a couple of spans. Let me see if this works. I might have to do divs. The way the CSS grid is going to get set up. Right, I'll just do like an empty span here. It's super hacky. I mean, I probably would have used the table, honestly, but again, this is all live coding, so I never think about the optimal solution. I just get it working, and people leave comments that call me stupid, and that's fine. So here we have it. So now you can actually select your different things. And ultimately, like, you're going to have to take this data and send it somewhere, right? So you need to send it to a backend. So we're going to have to, like, unfortunately, you're going to have to elevate state. I hate React in the fact that, like, in order to get the state here of all those individual inputs, I'm going to have to elevate state into like a higher level state to keep track of all these maps. I mean, I could use like context. Maybe that would be a little bit easier if I use some type of context and passed in the state to allow it to change something. Yeah, I think for every single row, I'm going to have to pull out some state. Let me fix this. I'll make this a string real quick, like so. So what is the best way to do this? I mean, like, I could elevate state. I don't like that I have to elevate state. Like, I like that the fact that these things kept track of like their individual little checkbox state. But in order to like use this and send this over to a backend, like at some point you're going to have like a button over here that says like submit, right? Or save. And then how do you get access to that state? Well, the only way to do it in React is you pull it up, or you pull in Zustand or some type of state management, so that this component can know about the internal state of all this. So I might have to like pull this whole thing out, put it up here, and then for every row, like if you wanted to make this more dynamic, you could make this a row of read, write, delete objects like this. And I'm gonna make a function called set permissions. I'll do, what am I doing? I'll do function here. And basically we want to pass in the new state for every single object. So I'll just go ahead and say like set permissions, and then I'll say, no, let me rethink this. What am I trying to do? So if I had like 2, it's always good to start small. If I had 2 rows, first of all, let's make a map here. I'll say permissions.map, and I'll say permission. And we're going to go ahead and render out checkbox row like this. And we'll have a label here. Now it's getting kind of sophisticated, right? So we're going to print out the label, which again, we don't have access to the label. Yes, we could put it here. I don't know. We could say like T1. Again, it's always cool to just play with the code and try to figure out a solution that works for you, and then refactor when it doesn't seem like it's working too well. So we could pass it permission.label, and that would render out the labels correctly, I believe. Although we do have an error here. Permissions is not defined. Permissions is not defined. Oh, obviously here I need to pass in permission, and that's going to be an object permission. I'll just say any for right now to keep it simple. But then we also need a way to like change that. So I'm going to pass in set permissions, and this will be an any for right now. I don't want to like spend too much time with the things. But we don't have access to the actual permissions that we're dealing with. Oh, let me rename this to permissions. Okay, so that'll fix our little component. Now the state no longer lives in that component. It's going to be pulled out. So how do you get this working? Well, this thing needs permissions, and then it needs a set permissions. Okay, but these little checkbox rows don't know that you're dealing with an array here. So when you pass in this permissions, it needs to be permission like so. And then this one, when you call set permissions, this probably needs to be like a function that's going to take in your new permissions. And what is it actually doing? It needs to call set permissions. I'm just going to do this. I'm probably making this so overly complicated at this point. But we need to update that individual index of that array, right? So I'll keep track of the index here. And I'll just go ahead and get like the object that we want to update. Permission to update equals permissions dot, I'll just say index, whatever. And then object dot assign permissions to update. And then we're going to go ahead and just assign it to new permissions. And then set permissions. You know, I always forget how to do this in React in place. Like, I rather have Emmer or something where I can just like modify this freaking index in place. But now it's like a pain because it's like I have to loop through the array. So I might actually change this to an object that has T1, and this is going to have that. T2 will have this. Okay, so no longer using an array. I feel like I'm so out of the loop when it comes to making YouTube videos now, and like I just feel like I'm struggling. I'll say object.keys, and I'll loop over all the keys of this permissions array, so T1 and T2, T3, etc. And this should give us the key. And using the key, what we can do is we can say permissions of key. String cannot be used. Why is this complaining? I don't know why this is complaining. Maybe I have to like type this with TypeScript. Geez, I don't know. We'll fix this in a bit. So basically, I'm just refactoring this to be an object. I'm looping through all the keys of that object, doing the same thing, generating a row for every single one. But then when we call the set permissions, like instead of doing this stuff that I was doing before, what we could do is we could say set permissions, and then we're going to do a ... permissions, but then we're going to overwrite the key that we have, and then we're going to go ahead and just set new permissions like this. I think this will work a little bit better. I'm having a bunch of like TypeScript complaining errors because I have like implicit innies. Let's see if we can solve this issue. Element implicitly has an any type because expression of type string cannot be used to index type 1. Why not? I mean, do I need to wrap these in like quotes to make it happy? Do I need to give this a record of string any? That's probably what I need to do. So really this, if I wanted to be proper, like, let's just give this a type of a T permission. And we're going to say read is a Boolean, write is a Boolean, delete is a Boolean. And I feel like I'm just overly complicating something, honestly, but whatever. I guess this will work. So this will store a string and that'll map to permission. So again, this is like a map that contains the Booleans that's nested inside of a map. So it's getting even more complex. But I think this should work better. And the label could just be the key. Let's just see what happens. Does this still work? Each child should have a unique key. All right, so obviously I need to go here and say key is equal to key because React wants to know what the unique key is. All right, no complaints, read. I think it's still working the way it did before. And the idea is when I click submit, I want this thing to actually call a function handle submit, and I'm just going to console log the state just so that I can show you that we have access to like everything now. And and that was a big roundabout way to like just get this simple thing set up. But let's click submit, and now you look, we have a map that contains a key of T1 and T2, and then we have access to the Boolean state of this checkbox stuff. So 20 minutes of me explaining that. Hopefully it wasn't too confusing. But that's personally how I would solve it. And it took me a while to get to that solution. But yeah, I think this will work pretty good. If you guys have a comment of a better way to like solve this, again, like maybe use table or something instead of this little hack. This looks kind of hacky, but table probably would have been better, honestly. But this is like the important part. Anyway, it's late. I'm tired. Don't know if I explained this really well, but I hope you guys learned something or enjoyed watching me struggle solving this little problem. Yeah, leave a comment, subscribe, like. Also, join my Discord if you want to try to get help with your learning journey. There's people there willing to help you if you're stuck with any type of React or JavaScript questions. So feel free to join, ask your questions, and hopefully someone will help you out. Have a good day. Happy coding.